The federal opposition leader has apologised to the families of soldiers serving in Afghanistan he says he may have offended. Tony Abbott says he chose his words poorly when he explained his reason not to travel with the Prime Minister to the conflict zone last weekend. The row erupted while both leaders are half a world away. Julia Gillard is in Brussels, while Tony Abbott is in the UK. Europe correspondent Philip Williams reports.
On the face of it, it didn't look good for Tony Abbott. He turned down the Prime Minister's invitation to join her in Afghanistan on the way to Europe. He's in the UK, where he's meeting British Prime Minister David Cameron at the Conservative Party conference. And it was this explanation that angered many.
I thought it was important to do this trip justice, and I didn't want to get here in an entirely jet-lagged condition, and so I'm in a position to make the most of this opportunity.
Well, I'll let Mr Abbott work out his own sleeping patterns. For myself, obviously, as you know, I went to Afghanistan, then to Zurich, then came here and did manage to get 8 hours sleep last night, and that prepared me for a very long day.
But what Tony Abbott didn't and couldn't say for security reasons is that he'd been planning a separate trip to Afghanistan. That was revealed at home by Joe Hockey.
This is low-rent politics from Julia Gillard. Julia Gillard is playing a very, very silly game on this. Julia Gillard knows that Tony Abbott has locked in a set date to go and visit the troops in Afghanistan.
Not long after, Tony Abbott told ABC Radio he could have expressed himself better.
Look, it was a very poor choice of words on my part, and I apologise if I've created the wrong impression, and I apologise if I've given offence, because the last thing I would want to do is give offence to the families of our troops.
Afghanistan was also preoccupying the Prime Minister, Julia Gillard, who made a visit to NATO headquarters in Brussels as a priority.
When I've been asked for a time estimate, how long do we imagine that task will take, the estimate is between 2 to 4 years. So we are very clear on what the mission is, very clear on what success looks like.
Another handshake and another commitment, this time to a treaty with Europe, though there's work to be done.
We very much support the idea of upgrading and giving a more important expression to the relationship.
But this is what the visit is all about, a gathering of Asian and European leaders, an occasion marked by ceremony and style. And according to Britain's Deputy Prime Minister Nick Clegg, high time Australia joined this expanding club.
Discussing with your Prime Minister, what happens in Asia is of immediate relevance to every single family and community in Australia. So it would be very odd not to have Australia here.
Hard decisions to tackle international threats to the global economy, climate and security are not likely here, but there is plenty of talk. At the opening dinner, the Prime Minister outlined the economic reforms she says will help protect against another global economic shock. Julia Gillard says she's happier dealing with the challenges at home, but this is all part of the job.
Foreign policy is not my passion. It's not what I've spent my life doing. I came into politics predominantly to make a difference to opportunity questions, particularly make a difference in education. So, yes, if I had a choice, I'd probably more be in a school watching kids learn to read in Australia than here in Brussels at international meetings.
But there'll be many more appearances on world stages, the G20 the most important. One of the great advantages of this trip for Julia Gillard is not just what's being discussed, but who she's met, powerful individuals that may come in very handy at forums like the G20 when real decisions may be made. Philip Williams, Late Line.